Hello and welcome. Beneath the foundations of every fortress, deeper than the roots of ancient forests, older than the memory of elves and the first words spoken by dragons, something stirs in its endless dream. These are not mere monsters to be catalogued in bestiaries or challenges, to be overcome by adventuring parties. These are the architects of terror, the sculptors of legend, beings so monumentally powerful that their very existence rewrites the laws of nature around them. When you speak of ancient beasts in the worlds of Dungeons and Dragons, you speak of creatures that predated civilization itself, that watched continents form and crumble, that knew the taste of primordial chaos before the gods themselves imposed order upon the multiverse. You drift now into the space where legends breathe, where the oldest stories echo through caverns of memory. Let yourself settle into this place between knowing and dreaming, where the weight of ages presses gently against your awareness. The first creature we explore together moves through legend like a slow tide, inevitable and patient, carrying with it the weight of eons and the promise of endings. The Tarrasque, even the name feels heavy on your tongue, ancient syllables that taste of dust and stone and time beyond measure. When you whisper this name in the quiet places of the world, you call to something that has no need of names, that existed before language itself shaped the first prayers to the first gods. The Tarrasque simply is, has always been, will always be, a constant in a universe of change. Let your awareness sink now into the texture of this being. Picture scales the size of tower shields, each one a landscape unto itself, ridged and weathered like ancient bedrock. These scales shimmer with a dull brown-gray sheen, the color of mountains worn smooth by wind and rain over millennia. When light touches these scales, it does not reflect cleanly, but absorbs into countless tiny imperfections. Each mark a memory of some forgotten battle, some city crushed to powder beneath the creature's inexorable advance. The body stretches before your mind's eye, vast beyond easy comprehension. 50 feet tall when the creature rears on its hind legs, 70 feet from snout to tail, and weighing 130 tons of living destruction. Mass beyond mass, weight beyond weight. The Tarrasque displaces reality simply by existing within it. The air grows thick around the creature, heavy with presence, and you feel this density even in contemplation, even in the safe space of imagination and story. Horns crown the massive head, sweeping back like the horns of some prehistoric beast, magnified beyond reason. These are not elegant dragon horns, graceful and purposeful. These are brutal implements, blunt instruments designed by forces that cared nothing for beauty or efficiency, only for the simple fact of destruction. Smaller horns and bony protrusions cover the entire body, a forest of bone breaking the smooth lines of scale and flesh, each one capable of goring a horse, of piercing castle walls, of reshaping the landscape through simple contact. Feel now the rhythm of this creature's existence. The Tarrasque does not hurry. It has no concept of hurry, no understanding that time might press upon it with any urgency. Each movement flows with the inevitability of glaciers, of continental drift, of stars wheeling through their courses. The creature lifts one massive foot, and the motion takes seconds, each muscle bunching with visible power, tendons thick as ship's cables flexing beneath scale-armored hide. The foot descends, and the earth accepts this gift of weight, trembling, reshaping itself around the impact, creating a crater that will remain for generations, a permanent scar, a memorial to the moment when the Tarrasque walked this particular stretch of ground. You sense the breathing now, slow and deep, each inhalation drawing air across distances measured in miles, each exhalation a wind that bends trees and scatters clouds. The lungs must be vast beyond imagining, chambers large enough to hold entire buildings, processing air in quantities that would support whole villages. Yet the breath comes softly, almost gently, the sound of it less a roar and more a constant susurrus, like distant waves on a pebbled shore, eternal and unchanging. The tail deserves your full attention, this weapon of living bone and muscle that extends 40 feet behind the main body. Watch it move in your mind's eye, swaying with a rhythm independent of the creature's steps, possessed of its own terrible grace. The tail does not thrash wildly, but sweeps with precision, with intention, each movement calculated by some intelligence too alien for mortal minds to comprehend. Spikes stud the tail's length, each spike 10 feet of hardened bone sharp enough to pierce adamantine, positioned at angles that maximize damage, that ensure anything struck will not merely wound, but shatter, will not merely break, but pulverize into component atoms. Your mind traces now through the creature's origins, shrouded in the mists of time before mortals kept proper records. Some scholars of ancient lore suggest the Tarrasque represents one of the first acts of creation, a being shaped by primordial forces before the gods established their current domains. Other theories propose it came from beyond the known planes entirely. Perhaps a visitor from some darker, older reality that preceded the current multiverse, based on prophetic texts discovered in ruins predating the elven empire of Myth Draenor. A third interpretation emerges, one that frames the Tarrasque as nature's ultimate correction, a living apocalypse designed to scour away civilizations that grow too proud or too powerful. The most chilling aspect of these theories lies not in their dramatic claims, but in their shared recognition that the Tarrasque serves a purpose, fulfills a role in the cosmic order that transcends simple destruction. When it awakens, when it rises from whatever deep cavern or dimensional pocket has contained its slumber. This could imply that something in the fundamental balance of the world has shifted. The creature might function as a correction, a violent realignment of forces that mortals barely comprehend. Historical records document numerous Tarrasque rampages across different time periods, and different regions of Faerun. Each account shares certain common elements despite being separated by centuries and thousands of miles. The creature emerges without warning. No tremors precede its arrival. No signs in nature herald its approach. One moment, the world proceeds in its normal patterns. The next, the Tarrasque has arrived, and everything within dozens of miles faces immediate annihilation. Tales from southern Faerun speak of mighty kingdoms reduced to nothing, civilizations erased so thoroughly that even their names have been lost to time. You can picture these unnamed cities, their walls reinforced by the greatest engineers and enchanters, their kings boasting of permanence, of legacies that would endure 10,000 years. Then comes the day when the Tarrasque arrives, and those boasts become ash and silence. From what we know of such encounters, the most disturbing pattern concerns the creature's demeanor during destruction. It does not rage. It does not roar with fury or trumpet its dominance. Based on survivor accounts from various rampages throughout history, the Tarrasque moves with methodical calm, almost gentle in its terrible efficiency. The way you might walk through your garden, barely noticing the insects beneath your feet. This suggests the creature possesses no malice, no anger, no evil intent. It simply exists in a space, and that space cannot simultaneously contain the Tarrasque and anything else mortals might wish to preserve. Consider now the Tarrasque's relationship with magic, another aspect of the creature that elevates it beyond mere physical threat. The beast possesses what sages term reflective carapace, a quality of its scales that does not merely resist magical assault, but actively rebounds it toward the caster. You might imagine a wizard of tremendous power, master of ninth circle spells, hurling their most devastating evocation at the approaching horror. The spell strikes the creature's hide and rebounds, the wizard's own magic becoming their destruction. This is not a magical defense in any conventional sense. The Tarrasque does not possess spell resistance as dragons do. Instead, its very existence appears to create a dead zone for certain types of magic, a bubble of anti-arcane reality that moves with it. The creature's immunity extends to multiple forms of attack. Fire cannot burn it. Cold cannot freeze it. Lightning plays across its scales like water across oiled leather. Poison, which might fell even ancient dragons, means nothing to the Tarrasque's alien physiology. Necrotic energy, the favorite weapon of powerful undead and dark clerics, finds no purchase on flesh that exists partially outside the normal cycle of life and death. The creature does not age. It does not sicken. It does not hunger in any conventional sense, though it devours everything in its path with mechanical regularity. Different cultures across Faerun and beyond have developed their own interpretations of the Tarrasque's significance. In the deserts of Kalimshan, ancient cave paintings depict a great beast emerging from beneath the sands, and oral traditions passed down through generations speak of the World Eater, a creature that exists to consume pride and hubris. The people of Kalimshan believe that whenever civilization grows too comfortable, too certain of its permanence, the World Eater rises to remind mortals of their proper place in the cosmic hierarchy. Far to the north, among the barbarian tribes of the spine of the World Mountains, you find a different interpretation. Here, the creature appears in legends as the final test, a challenge sent by primal spirits to determine whether humanity has grown strong enough to inherit the world. According to these traditions, one day a hero will emerge capable of defeating the Tarrasque in single combat, and that victory will mark the beginning of a new age where mortals truly command their own destiny, rather than living at the mercy of ancient powers. The druids of the Moonchi Isles understand the Tarrasque through yet another lens. To them, the creature represents the wrath of nature itself, the planet's immune system responding to the infection of civilization. When towns grow too large, when forests fall too readily to the axe, when the balance between wilderness and cultivation tips too far toward human dominance, the Tarrasque awakens to restore equilibrium. This interpretation has led to a particular strain of druidic philosophy that views each Tarrasque rampage not as a tragedy, but as a necessary correction, a violent but ultimately beneficial purging of excess. You move through these various cultural understandings, each one offering a piece of the greater truth, none holding the complete answer. The beauty of the Tarrasque as a concept lies partly in this ambiguity, this resistance to simple explanation. The creature exists simultaneously as natural disaster, divine punishment, cosmic correction, and primordial remnant. All these interpretations contain truth, and yet all of them fall short of capturing the full reality of what the Tarrasque represents. The creature's periods of dormancy can last anywhere from months to years, sometimes extending to decades or even centuries in rare cases. No pattern has emerged from historical analysis that might predict when the next awakening will occur. Some scholars have attempted to correlate Tarrasque appearances with celestial events, planetary alignments, or magical convergences. Others have searched for connections to periods of war, plague, or social upheaval. All such efforts have proven futile. The Tarrasque awakens according to its own ineffable schedule, answerable to forces that exist beyond mortal comprehension or measurement. During its dormant periods, the creature retreats to places unknown. Some propose it burrows deep into the earth, creating vast caverns that will someday become mountain ranges. Others suggest it retreats to a demiplane of its own, a pocket dimension that exists specifically to house the creature during its rest. A third theory, based on certain planar research, proposes that the Tarrasque never truly sleeps, but instead exists in a state of partial reality, present on multiple planes simultaneously, but too diffused to interact meaningfully with any of them until the moment of awakening when it coalesces back into full, terrible focus on the material plane. The question of whether the Tarrasque can truly die has occupied theologians and arcanists for millennia. Traditional means of killing, no matter how powerful, prove ultimately ineffective. You can wound the creature. You can drive it back. You can force it to retreat and return to dormancy. But permanent death seems to elude even the mightiest of heroes and the most powerful of spells. Several legendary adventuring parties across different eras have claimed to kill the Tarrasque, and indeed, the creature has fallen, stopped moving, seemingly perished. Yet decades or centuries later, reports surface of the Tarrasque returning, whether the same individual somehow restored, or a new incarnation spawned by the same primordial forces that created the first. This apparent immortality has led to dark whispers, debated in secret councils of archpriests and back rooms of wizard academies. If the Tarrasque cannot die through conventional means, perhaps more extreme measures become necessary. Some ancient texts reference what they call a ritual of unmaking, a spell so powerful and so dangerous that its casting would reshape reality itself. These texts suggest such a ritual could potentially destroy the Tarrasque, though it would also fundamentally alter the laws of nature that govern mortality and existence. The price described seems catastrophic, possibly requiring the sacrifice of an entire nation or the permanent destruction of a fundamental aspect of magic. Most scholars consider this theoretical discussion academic at best, suicidal at worst, but the texts remain carefully preserved, studied by those who believe that someday, perhaps, the Tarrasque will leave mortals no choice but to attempt the impossible. The creature's physical capabilities extend beyond its mere size and resilience. The Tarrasque moves with shocking speed for something so massive, capable of running at speeds that make escape on foot impossible for most creatures. Picture yourself watching from a distant hilltop as the creature approaches. At first, it seems almost leisurely, each stride covering ground but not appearing rushed. Then your perspective shifts. You realize that each step covers dozens of feet. The ground shakes with each impact. What appeared to be a slow, almost lazy pace reveals itself as a relentless advance that closes distance with horrifying efficiency. The jaws deserve particular attention in any comprehensive understanding of the creature. When the Tarrasque opens its mouth, you see row upon row of teeth, each one the size of a greatsword, designed not for chewing, but for gripping and crushing. The creature can swallow creatures as large as horses whole, and its digestive system, if such a term applies to the Tarrasque's alien biology, can break down any substance. Armor means nothing. Magical protections dissolve. Stone, steel, flesh, all become equal before the creature's appetite. But perhaps most terrifying are the creature's claws. Each foot bears 5 talons, curved and keen, each one 10 feet long and harder than any forged blade. These claws can rend castle walls the way you might tear through parchment. They can burrow through solid rock, allowing the creature to emerge from beneath fortifications that believed themselves safe behind moats and ramparts. The Tarrasque approaches from below, from within, and by the time defenders realize their danger, the creature has already shattered their final refuge. Consider the psychological impact of the Tarrasque on cultures that know of its existence. In regions where the creature has struck within living memory, entire philosophies emerge around the concept of impermanence. Why build in stone when stone crumbles? Why accumulate wealth when wealth can vanish in an afternoon? Some societies, scarred by Tarrasque rampages, become nomadic, refusing to establish permanent settlements that might attract the creature's attention. Others become fatalistic, embracing each day as potentially their last, building no monuments, recording no histories, living entirely in the ephemeral present. The creature's impact extends beyond those directly affected by its rampages. Knowledge of the Tarrasque, spread through barred tales and scholarly treatises, influences behavior across entire continents. Kings who might otherwise wage wars of expansion remember that their mighty armies mean nothing if the Tarrasque awakens within their borders. Wizards who might otherwise pursue immortality through becoming liches or other dark transformations pause to consider whether eternal existence holds any appeal in a world where the Tarrasque eventually comes for everything. Religious interpretations of the Tarrasque vary as widely as cultural ones. Some faiths view the creature as a divine instrument, a tool wielded by the gods to punish mortal transgression. In the Church of Lothander, god of dawn and renewal, certain texts describe the Tarrasque as the final darkness before a new beginning, the necessary destruction that clears the way for fresh creation. These faithful see each rampage as a tragedy, certainly, but also as an opportunity, a chance to rebuild better and wiser than before. The followers of Silvanus, god of wild nature, hold a different view. To them, the Tarrasque could represent the ultimate expression of natural law, proof that no matter how powerful civilization becomes, nature retains the capacity to reclaim everything. Druidic circles that venerate Silvanus maintain detailed records of Tarrasque sightings and rampages, searching for patterns that might reveal deeper truths about the natural world's rhythms and cycles. Even evil deities have been connected to the Tarrasque in various mythologies. Cultists of Talos, god of storms and destruction, sometimes invoke the creature's name in their rituals, begging their deity to awaken the beast and unleash it upon their enemies. Whether these prayers ever reach divine ears, whether any god truly commands the Tarrasque or can influence its behavior, remains a mystery that scholars debate without resolution. Attempts to communicate with the Tarrasque have universally failed. The creature shows no sign of comprehending language, responding to neither common nor draconic, nor any of the ancient tongues known to archmages. Speak with animals, the spell that allows druids to converse with beasts, produces no result when cast in the Tarrasque's presence. Even speak with monsters, a more powerful variant, achieves nothing. The creature possesses a mind, presumably, but that mind operates on principles so alien, so divorced from mortal consciousness, that no bridge of understanding can span the gap. This inability to communicate, to negotiate, or reason with the Tarrasque contributes significantly to the terror it inspires. When facing a dragon, even an evil chromatic worm bent on destruction, you retain some hope of parley, some possibility of striking a bargain or appealing to the creature's greed or vanity. The Tarrasque offers no such hope. It cannot be bribed. It cannot be reasoned with. It cannot be turned aside through clever words or diplomatic overtures. It comes, and the only choices become fight, flee, or die. Tales exist of successful defenses against the Tarrasque, though the definition of success proves relative. These accounts share certain common features. First, they required overwhelming force, typically multiple high-level adventuring parties working in coordination, supported by armies and arcane artillery. Second, even successful defenses resulted in catastrophic casualties and destruction. Cities that managed to drive the creature away still lost significant portions of their population and infrastructure. Third, the victory proved temporary. The Tarrasque retreated, returned to dormancy, but was not truly defeated. The creature would return eventually, if not in that generation, then in the next, or the one after. One such account, preserved in the archives of the Sword Coast, describes a coastal city that mobilized every resource available when scouts reported the Tarrasque's approach. The local duke, a veteran warrior who had prepared for this scenario his entire rule, led a coordinated defense that managed to wound the creature. After 3 days of continuous battle, after sustaining enough damage to partially blind it, the Tarrasque suddenly stopped fighting. It turned away from the city, walked back toward wilderness, and disappeared. The Duke declared victory, but he understood the truth. Half his city lay in ruins. Thousands had died. The creature still lived, and nothing prevented it from returning. Modern scholarship has attempted to apply rigorous methods to understanding the Tarrasque, with limited success. Samples of the creature's blood, scales, and tissue have been recovered from various battle sites over the centuries. Analysis reveals biological structures unlike anything else found in nature. The scales, for example, possess a crystalline structure at the molecular level that should make them brittle, but instead enhances their strength. The blood contains compounds that should be toxic, that should prevent any organism from functioning, yet clearly do not impair the Tarrasque. Some researchers theorize that the Tarrasque's body exists partially in another dimension, that what appears in the material plane represents only a fraction of the creature's true form. This could explain its resistance to damage, its apparent immortality, and its ability to disappear so completely between rampages. If most of the Tarrasque's mass and vital systems exist elsewhere, attacking the visible portion accomplishes little more than annoying the creature. Other scholars reject this dimensional theory, arguing instead that the Tarrasque represents a form of life from an earlier age of the multiverse, when the laws of nature operated differently. In this view, the creature is not supernatural, but simply natural according to different rules. A survivor from an epoch when beings of such power walked commonly across the world. The current age, with its smaller dragons and weaker monsters, might represent a diminished state, and the Tarrasque serves as a living reminder of what once was and what might someday return. Prophecies concerning the Tarrasque appear in religious texts across multiple faiths and cultures. Some predict that the Tarrasque will one day awaken and not return to slumber, that it will roam the world continuously until nothing remains but dust and memories. This apocalyptic vision has inspired numerous doomsday cults over the centuries, groups that worship the Tarrasque as a god of ending, that pray for the final rampage to begin during their lifetimes. More optimistic prophecies exist as well. Ancient epic poems tell of a hero yet unborn who will finally destroy the Tarrasque permanently, breaking the cycle of rampage and dormancy that has plagued civilization since the dawn of time. This hero, according to the prophecy, will wield a sword forged from a fallen star and blessed by all the gods of good. A weapon capable of cutting through even the Tarrasque's invulnerable hide. Whether this prophecy represents genuine divine revelation or merely wishful thinking recorded in verse, none can say with certainty. The Tarrasque's legacy extends beyond direct destruction into the realm of language and culture. Parents across Faerun warn misbehaving children that the Tarrasque will come for them if they do not behave. The phrase "to wake the Tarrasque" has become synonymous with catastrophic error, with triggering consequences far beyond what was intended. Military strategists speak of Tarrasque scenarios, situations where no victory is possible, and the only goal becomes minimizing losses while retreating in good order. Architecture has been influenced by the Tarrasque's existence as well. In regions where the creature has appeared multiple times over the centuries, certain design principles emerge. Foundations go deeper than structurally necessary, creating underground chambers that might survive even if surface structures collapse. Important documents and valuables are stored in scattered locations rather than centralized vaults, based on the theory that the Tarrasque cannot destroy everything if targets are dispersed widely enough. Some cities maintain evacuation plans that assume only hours of warning before disaster strikes, with predetermined assembly points and escape routes designed to move populations away from urban centers as quickly as possible. The creature's influence on military thinking cannot be overstated. Every general who rises to command in regions threatened by the Tarrasque must grapple with the same strategic reality, that no army can stand against such a foe in direct combat, that conventional tactics and formations prove worse than useless. This has led to the development of specialized doctrines focused not on defeating the Tarrasque, but on evacuating civilians, preserving supply caches, and maintaining unit cohesion during retreats. Young officers study past rampages not to learn how to fight the creature, but to understand how to fail with minimum casualties, how to lose battles in ways that preserve forces for future conflicts after the Tarrasque has moved on. The Tarrasque represents, ultimately, a truth that civilized peoples prefer to ignore in their day-to-day lives. For all your achievements, for all the towers you build and the kingdoms you establish, for all the magic you master and the monsters you tame, something larger exists, something older, something that will outlast every city you construct and every monument you raise. The Tarrasque is mortality made manifest, the universe's reminder that everything ends, that no amount of preparation or power can grant true security, that existence itself remains fundamentally precarious for beings who dare to believe they control their destiny. Section 2. Serpents of the Skies and Depths. Your awareness shifts now, moves away from the earthquake creature that walks on legs of stone, and turns toward beings of a different nature entirely. Where the Tarrasque embodies raw destruction and primal force, other ancient beasts carry within them qualities of grace and wisdom, of beauty threaded through power, of purposes more complex than simple obliteration. These creatures serpentine in form, bodies that twist through air and water with movements that hypnotize and entrance, invite you into contemplation of a different kind of primordial majesty. The quaddle appears first in your mind's eye, and you must pause to appreciate the sheer improbability of this being's existence. Imagine a serpent 12 feet in length, its body thick as a person is tall, scales that shimmer with colors no earthly gemstone can match. But this serpent possesses wings, great feathered wings with a span of 15 feet when fully extended. Each feather a masterwork of natural design, iridescent and perfect. The wings do not emerge awkwardly from the serpentine body, but flow naturally from it, as if serpent and bird were always meant to merge, as if this combination represents not an accident of creation, but an intentional design, a statement of purpose written in flesh and feather. Despite weighing nearly 1,800 pounds, the quaddle moves through tropical skies with grace that defies its mass. The wings beat slowly, almost lazily, each downstroke producing a sound like distant thunder, softened by distance and humidity. The serpentine body undulates as it flies, creating a motion that seems to defy physics, that appears to swim through air as if atmosphere were merely thin water. The creature's scales catch sunlight and transform it, breaking white light into rainbows that trail behind the quaddle like banners, announcing its presence to all who possess eyes to see. Feel the weight of divinity that surrounds these beings. The quaddles serve purposes beyond their own survival, beyond simple existence in the natural order. They are guardians, watchers, celestial serpents placed in the mortal world by powers that cared enough about creation to embed protectors within it. Each quaddle carries within its being a fragment of divine purpose, a mission that might span centuries or millennia, that drives the creature forward through ages of change and upheaval. The origins of quaddles stretch back to times when gods walked more freely through the material plane, when the boundaries between divine and mortal remained more permeable than they have since become, based on their celestial nature and the patterns we see in other divine servitors. We might infer that the first quaddles emerged through direct divine intervention, beings designed specifically to serve good, to oppose evil, to maintain balance in a cosmos constantly threatened by chaos and corruption. You sense the intelligence behind those serpentine eyes now, vast and alien, yet not hostile, not dismissive of mortal, concerns the way the Tarrasque's vacant gaze dismisses everything. The quaddle sees you, understands you, comprehends your nature, and your struggles with a clarity that would be terrifying if the creature bore any malice. The creature possesses telepathy, can communicate directly mind to mind, bridging language barriers through pure thought. But quaddles do not hate. They protect. They guide. They intervene when darkness threatens to overwhelm light, when corruption spreads too far, when the balance tips toward chaos and requires correction. Given their long lifespans and celestial origins, it seems reasonable to conclude that quaddles maintain vigilance over specific regions or populations, watching for threats that mortal defenders cannot perceive or counter. Their ability to detect evil and read thoughts allows them to perceive corruption before it manifests in obvious ways. To understand how today's small transgression might blossom into tomorrow's catastrophe if left unchecked. The quaddle's magical abilities deserve particular attention. These creatures command spells with innate mastery that mortal wizards spend lifetimes attempting to achieve. They can detect evil and magic at will, can read thoughts to discern true intentions, can cure wounds with divine power, and even restore the dead to life through greater restoration magic. This combination of abilities marks them as beings of tremendous power, wrapped in relatively modest physical form. When a quaddle uses its abilities to heal or protect, witnesses might describe experiencing something beyond mere spell effects. Based on accounts of encounters with celestial beings, we can reasonably assume that the quaddle's magic carries with it a sense of peace, of rightness, of alignment with cosmic good that transcends the mechanical restoration of health or removal of curses. Feel yourself descending now from sky to sea, from air to water, from the domain of feathered serpents to the realm of other ancient beings whose serpentine forms adapted to different environments. The ocean depths hold secrets older than most land-based civilizations. House creatures that make their homes in pressures that would crush surface dwellers instantly. In darkness so complete that eyes become useless organs, the dragon turtle emerges from these depths, and you must appreciate the audacity of its design. Picture a sea turtle magnified beyond reason, measuring 20 to 30 feet from snout to tail, with a shell 15 to 25 feet in diameter, thick enough to serve as the foundation for a small fortress. This shell does not end in smooth dome. Instead, it rises in jagged peaks and ridges, formations of bone and keratin that resemble nothing so much as a mountain range in miniature, complete with valleys and passes and steep cliff faces. The shell's color shifts between deep green and ocean blue, camouflage that renders the creature nearly invisible when it swims in deep water, a moving reef that smaller sea life mistakes for stationary geology. The creature can weigh anywhere from 8,000 to 32,000 pounds, a mass so tremendous that when it walks across the ocean floor, it leaves permanent impressions in rock and sediment. The head extends from beneath this mobile fortress on a neck thick as a ship's mast. And here the turtle nature gives way to something more draconic. The skull possesses a distinctly reptilian quality, jaws that open wide enough to swallow a rowboat whole, teeth designed for crushing and tearing rather than the gentle herbivore's beak of common turtles. The legs, each one thick as ancient tree trunks, end not in flippers, but in clawed feet capable of tearing through ship hulls with casual ease. The dragon turtle can walk across the ocean floor as easily as it swims through open water, can anchor itself against currents that would sweep away lesser creatures, can climb underwater cliffs and navigate trenches with the sure-footed confidence born from centuries of experience. The tail extends behind the main body, and when the dragon turtle fights, when it defends its territory against threats real or perceived, this appendage becomes a weapon of devastating power. A single strike can split a warship in half, can create waves large enough to swamp coastal villages, can reshape underwater terrain through sheer kinetic force. You sense the dragon turtle's breath weapon now, that gift that marks its draconic heritage. The creature draws in seawater, processes it through specialized organs, and exhales superheated steam in a cone that extends outward from its jaws. This steam boils water instantly, cooks flesh, warps metal, creates turbulence that disorients and damages everything in its path. Ships that encounter an angry dragon turtle often sink without the crew ever seeing the creature that destroyed them, mistaking the steam for some volcanic vent, never recognizing the intelligence guiding the assault. Let yourself drift now through waters where dragon turtles make their homes, vast stretches of ocean too deep for casual exploration, too dangerous for most vessels to risk. These creatures claim territories measured in hundreds of square miles, patrol borders they have maintained for centuries, challenge any intrusion with immediate and devastating force. Yet, they are not mindless predators. Dragon turtles possess intelligence comparable to dragons themselves, speak multiple languages, and this suggests they can engage in diplomacy when it suits their purposes. The city of Waterdeep, that great metropolis perched on the Sword Coast, lies in waters where dragon turtles patrol. Based on what we understand of intelligent aquatic creatures and their territorial nature, it seems likely that arrangements exist, formal or informal, governing interaction between the city's shipping and these powerful beings. Dragon turtles understand that maintained relationships can provide more reliable sustenance than random predation. And coastal cities recognize that cooperation proves more practical than attempting to drive such creatures away through force. Where treaties or understandings exist, they tend to follow predictable patterns. The creatures might agree to refrain from attacking certain vessels in exchange for tribute, fishing restrictions, or other concessions. They honor such agreements because doing so serves their interests, providing regular benefits without the energy expenditure required for hunting. But not all dragon turtles choose commerce over isolation. Some individuals, particularly those who dwell in waters far from major shipping lanes, maintain their ancient patterns of behavior unchanged by human expansion. These reclusive beings attack any vessel that enters their territory, make no distinction between innocent merchants and hostile warships, view all surface craft as intrusions to be eliminated. Sailors speak in hushed tones of particular dragon turtles known for their aggression. Creatures who have sent dozens of ships to watery graves over the decades. Your awareness shifts again, moves from sea to land, seeks other serpentine forms that embody primordial power. The Behir slithers into focus now, and you must adjust your perspective to appreciate this creature properly. Where the quaddle represents celestial grace, and the dragon turtle embodies aquatic dominance, the Behir channels pure predatory efficiency, a design refined through ages of hunting, killing, consuming, surviving. Picture a serpent that can reach 40 feet in length when fully mature, its body segmented, each segment equipped with a pair of legs ending in hooked claws. 12 legs total, working in coordinated rhythm, allowing the Behir to move with shocking speed across any terrain, to climb sheer cliff faces as if they were level ground, to navigate narrow caverns, to traverse environments where limbless serpents would struggle. The body's coloration shifts between deep blue and ultramarine, scales that shimmer with an almost metallic sheen. Beautiful in the way, a well-forged blade is beautiful, admirable for its perfect adaptation to purpose rather than any aesthetic appeal. The head tapers to a point, jaws that unhinge to accommodate prey far larger than the Behir's apparent size should permit. Inside this mouth, You find rows of backward curving teeth designed to grip rather than chew, to hold struggling prey, to prevent escape once the jaws have closed. The behir does not kill through constriction alone. It combines constriction with its powerful bite, then swallows prey alive when possible, relies on powerful digestive acids to finish what its teeth and coils began. Feel the electricity now, crackling along the behir's hide, dancing between scales in patterns that mesmerize and warn. The creature generates this energy internally through specialized organs, stores charge, and releases it according to need and circumstance. When threatened, the behir can exhale lightning in a line extending outward, arcing electricity that can strike multiple targets if they stand close together. That grounds itself through metal armor with devastating efficiency. That turns any narrow passage into a kill zone. You sense the behir's hatred of dragons now, an animosity so deep and so old that it appears almost instinctual. The origins of this hatred have been lost to time, though scholars have proposed various theories. Some suggest the enmity dates back to when behirs served storm giants, that during that ancient period, conflicts with dragons created wounds that never healed. Others propose simple competition for territory and prey, that two apex predators sharing similar environments inevitably developed mutual hostility. Whatever the cause, behirs attack dragons on sight, abandon all caution and self-preservation, hurl themselves at their ancient enemies with fury that accepts death as possible, but views killing the dragon as paramount. Young behirs have been observed attacking dragons far larger than themselves, clinging to wings and neck, tearing at vulnerable points, determined to inflict maximum damage, even if survival proves impossible. This behavior transcends learned response, appears coded into the behir's fundamental nature. Let your mind wander now through underground environments where behirs make their lairs, vast cavern systems that honeycomb the earth beneath mountain ranges. The Underdark, that lightless realm beneath the surface world, hosts populations of behirs who have adapted to eternal darkness, who hunt by vibration and electrical sense rather than sight. A mature behir's territory can range over 400 square miles, an area the creature patrols constantly, defending against intrusions with lethal efficiency. The Drow, those dark elves who claim the Underdark as their domain, maintain complex relationships with behirs. Based on Drow culture's opportunistic nature, some houses likely attempt to train young behirs as guard beasts, though the creature's independence and aggression would make this challenging. Others hunt behirs for components, their scales sought for armor that resists magic, their organs valuable for alchemical purposes. The sheer danger involved in hunting adult behirs means such expeditions represent significant undertakings, requiring multiple skilled warriors and careful planning. Feel yourself rising now toward light and air, ascending from underground realms, seeking other serpentine beings that inhabit the spaces between earth and sky. The wyvern appears smaller than most creatures discussed thus far, but no less dangerous within its ecological niche. Picture a reptilian body measuring roughly 15 feet in length, covered in scales that range from dark green to mottled brown. Coloration that provides excellent camouflage in forested mountain environments. Leathery wings extend from the shoulders, bat-like membranes stretched across bone struts, capable of sustaining flight for extended periods. The tail demands your attention immediately, long and serpentine, ending in a venomous stinger that curves like a scorpion's weapon. This stinger represents the wyvern's primary offensive capability, capable of punching through armor, of injecting venom potent enough to kill within minutes. The creature wields this tail with precision born of instinct and practice, striking from angles that make defense nearly impossible. You sense the wyvern's place in the ecosystem now, apex predator in regions too harsh or too remote for larger dragons to claim permanently. Scavenger when hunting proves unsuccessful, intelligent enough to recognize opportunity, but driven primarily by instinct rather than complex reasoning. Wyverns often hunt in mated pairs, working together to bring down prey neither could kill alone, coordinating attacks in ways that suggest limited tactical thinking. Mountain villages in regions where wyverns dwell know these creatures as constant threats, predators that swoop down to snatch livestock or unwary travelers. Communities maintain watchtowers, employ lookouts who scan the skies continuously during daylight hours, ring alarm bells at the first sign of wyvern silhouettes against clouds. The wealthy hire adventurers to hunt nesting pairs, offering bounties for confirmed kills, hoping to reduce wyvern populations near settled areas. But the creatures always return eventually, drawn by accessible prey, by the reality that domesticated animals represent easier hunting than wild game. Let your awareness encompass now the totality of these serpentine beings, from celestial quaddles to earthbound behears, from oceanic dragon turtles to aerial wyverns. Each occupies a specific niche, fulfills a particular role in the complex machinery of existence. Together, they demonstrate the incredible diversity hidden within a single basic form, the serpent shape that has been adapted to every environment, to every challenge, to every possible expression of predatory efficiency or celestial grace. These creatures share certain qualities beyond their physical resemblance. All possess patience beyond mortal understanding, the ability to wait for optimal moments to act. All demonstrate focus once committed to a course of action. Whether that action involves protecting a sacred site, hunting a hated foe, or defending territory, all exist partially outside the normal flow of time that governs shorter-lived species. Their extended lifespans creating perspective that makes individual events seem less urgent. That allows them to perceive patterns invisible to beings who measure their lives in mere decades. You drift now among these ancient serpents. Let their presence fill your awareness. Let the weight of their collective age and power settle around you. Section 3. Elemental Titans and Primordial Forces. Your journey through ancient forms continues. But now, you leave behind creatures bound primarily to flesh and scale, moving instead toward beings composed of elements themselves, entities where matter and energy merge into living force. These are not monsters in any conventional sense. They are pieces of creation given awareness, fragments of the raw materials from which worlds are built, animated by purposes that predate mortal understanding of life itself. The phoenix appears first in your contemplation, and you must pause to absorb the sheer impossibility of its existence. Picture a bird of gargantuan size, wings that create storms with their passage. Each feather a tongue of flame that burns without consuming, that produces light without smoke, that radiates heat you can feel from extraordinary distances. The body glows with colors that shift through the spectrum of fire, from deep crimson at the core to brilliant yellow at the edges, to white-hot intensity at the wingtips, where temperature peaks beyond mortal endurance. Feel the warmth now, not the destructive heat of mundane fire, but something that carries both danger and vitality simultaneously. The phoenix radiates heat constantly, its mere presence capable of igniting flammable materials. Yet those who witness these creatures from safe distances speak of warmth that feels almost comforting. Heat that reminds you of life's essential spark rather than destruction's consuming hunger. The song of a phoenix, when it chooses to produce sound beyond the crackling of its flames, carries across vast distances. Based on accounts from those rare individuals who have encountered these beings, we might infer that the phoenix's vocalizations resonate with something primal, create responses in listeners that transcend mere auditory stimulation. Let yourself witness now the cycle that defines the phoenix's existence, the pattern of death and rebirth that has repeated for time beyond counting. The creature ages, accumulates damage through combat, or simply through the passage of time, until its current incarnation can no longer sustain itself. Then comes the moment when the phoenix knows instinctively that its current life approaches its end. When the phoenix dies, it explodes in a burst of flame that extends 60 feet in all directions, intense enough to severely harm any creature caught in the blast. The explosion destroys the phoenix's body completely, leaving behind only an egg-shaped cinder weighing 5 pounds. This cinder blazes with residual heat, dangerous to touch, immune to all damage through magical or mundane means. Watch as time passes. The cinder rests wherever it fell, days accumulating, heat slowly building within its impervious shell. Then, after 1 to 6 days have passed, the cinder hatches. A new phoenix emerges, fully formed, carrying within it the essence of its previous incarnation. This new bird possesses all the power of the old, represents true continuity despite the death that occurred, embodies renewal as a fundamental universal principle rather than merely a hopeful abstraction. The phoenix that emerges from rebirth possesses remarkably low intelligence by conventional measures, operating more on instinct and primal drive than complex reasoning. Yet this apparent simplicity masks something deeper, based on the phoenix's consistent behavior patterns across documented encounters. We can reasonably conclude that these beings operate according to cosmic imperatives that transcend individual thought, that they serve purposes established before conscious minds learned to question their own motivations. You sense the phoenix's relationship with other planes of existence now, how these beings serve as bridges between the material plane and the elemental plane of fire. This connection, though not explicitly detailed in most accounts, seems implicit in their nature. A creature composed entirely of living flame, yet able to exist comfortably in material reality, must draw upon energies from somewhere, must maintain some link to the source of elemental fire itself. Let your awareness shift now toward beings of different elemental composition, creatures formed not from fire, but from the other fundamental forces that shape reality. The elder elemental emerges into your contemplation, and you must adjust your thinking to comprehend what an elder elemental truly represents. Common elementals, those creatures summoned by wizards to serve temporary purposes, stand roughly human-sized, possess rudimentary intelligence, perform simple tasks before returning to their native planes. Elder elementals dwarf these lesser beings the way ancient dragons dwarf wormlings. Picture an elemental of earth standing huge in size, 40 feet tall when it bothers to maintain a fully manifested form, weighing 60,000 pounds of living stone. This massive being moves through the world with power that reshapes terrain through simple passage, each footfall registering as a seismic event to those with instruments sensitive enough to detect such disturbances. The Elder Earth elemental possesses natural armor so thick that conventional weapons achieve little against it. Attacks that would fell lesser creatures bouncing off its stony hide without leaving marks. When it strikes, when it brings those massive fists down upon some target, the impact carries force measured in tons, can shatter fortress walls, can create craters that persist for generations, as testament to the elemental's passing. This earth elemental moves with deliberate slowness above ground, each step requiring careful balance, each movement displacing mass that takes time to relocate. Yet underground, in the earth elemental's preferred environment, it swims through solid rock as easily as fish swim through water, perceives through vibration alone, navigates by senses mortals do not possess and cannot imagine. Elder elementals of other types exist as well, though encounters with them remain rare enough that detailed accounts prove scarce. Air elementals of elder status would presumably tower in the sky, composed of wind and storm, eyes that glow with lightning, forms that shift and flow with every breeze, never truly solid, never truly stable, existing in constant motion, because stillness means death for creatures born from eternal currents. Elder water elementals, based on what we understand of elemental progression, would flow more than walk, maintain shapes that suggest rather than define form, shift between solid and liquid states according to need and whim. Such beings would command seas in their vicinity, summon waves with gestures, create whirlpools through focused intent. Elder fire elementals would burn with intensity that melts stone, radiate light visible from horizons away, consume oxygen so rapidly that standing near them induces suffocation even before heat can kill. These beings would dance rather than walk, leap rather than step, exist in constant frenetic motion because stillness allows heat to dissipate, threatens the elementals' very existence. Let yourself drift now toward the greatest of aquatic primordials, beings whose very names cause sailors to lower their voices, to make protective signs, to offer prayers to gods of the sea. The Leviathan emerges from depths so profound that pressure would crush vessels, from trenches where light has never penetrated, from the absolute darkness where normal concepts of up and down lose meaning. While specific details about Leviathans vary between sources and traditions, the consistent thread describes creatures of tremendous size that dwell in the deepest oceans. These beings, whether singular or multiple, represent the sea's ultimate expression of power, aquatic life, scaled to proportions that challenge comprehension. Based on scattered accounts from deep-sea explorers and aquatic civilizations, we might reasonably infer that Leviathans measure hundreds of feet in length, possess bodies built to withstand pressures that would instantly kill surface-adapted creatures. The Leviathan swims through oceans like a force of nature made manifest, its passage detectable by ships dozens of miles away through the displacement of water alone. When it surfaces, when it rises from the depths for whatever purpose drives such beings, the water boils from sudden pressure changes, creates zones of turbulence that extend across vast areas. Ships caught in this turbulence founder, crews perish, cargo sinks to join other offerings the deep has claimed over millennia. Feel yourself descend now toward the ocean floor, seeking another primordial being whose existence blurs the line between creature and geography. The Zaratan rests on the seabed, and at first glance you might mistake it for an island, a mountain rising from the depths. This impression carries more truth than metaphor, for the Zaratan measures gargantuan in scale, large enough that its shell, covered in coral and seaweed, colonized by countless smaller organisms, can support entire ecosystems that live their lifetimes upon its back, unaware that their homeland breathes and dreams. And occasionally, perhaps once per century, decides to move. The Zaratan possesses a fortified shell so thick that attacks which would devastate other creatures barely register. Impacts that don't reach a certain threshold of force simply fail to penetrate the accumulated layers of living stone and coral that armor its back. Villages of merfolk have been known to establish themselves on zeratin shells, building homes in the coral forests, farming the abundant sea life attracted to these mobile habitats, living in symbiotic relationship with the vast being that provides their foundation. Let your mind absorb the staggering age of these creatures now. A zeratin can hold its breath for years, possibly decades or longer, existing in a state between full activity and torpor that allows it to remain submerged for periods that exceed most mortals' entire lifespans. The oldest known zeratins have existed for thousands of years, according to analysis of the geological and biological layers accumulated on their shells. And they show no signs of aging, no degradation that might suggest eventual death approaches. Picture what such a being has witnessed during its existence. Civilizations rose and fell, left no trace, were forgotten completely, all while this creature slumbered on the ocean floor, dreaming whatever dreams visit beings of such immense scope. Ocean levels changed through climate shifts. Underwater mountains eroded away. New volcanic formations created fresh seamounts. And through it all, the zeratin continued, patient beyond comprehension, indifferent to the brief concerns of civilizations that bloom and wither in what amounts, from the zeratin's perspective, to mere moments. The breathing pattern of a zeratin, when it surfaces to exchange air, creates currents detectable miles away. Each breath processes volumes of water equivalent to rivers, filters nutrients through specialized structures, sustains a body mass comparable to a small mountain through the ocean's bounty. The zeratin needs nothing beyond what the sea provides naturally, accumulates no wealth, builds no structures, simply exists in harmony with the marine environment that birthed it ages ago. Let yourself contemplate now how these elemental beings have shaped the planes themselves, how their mere existence has altered the fundamental structure of reality. The phoenix's connection to elemental fire creates resonances in areas where they nest or die, places where the boundary between worlds grows thin, where fire behaves unpredictably, where temperatures fluctuate without natural cause. These locations become sites of pilgrimage for those who revere fire, study locations for planar scholars, danger zones for anyone unprepared to handle the unpredictable magical effects that manifest. The elder elementals, through their long residence on the material plane, have seeded it with essences of their home planes. Regions where earth elementals congregate develop unusual geological features, mountains that grow at accelerated rates, caves that extend impossibly deep, gravity anomalies that cause stones to behave strangely. Areas frequented by air elementals experience perpetual winds, storms that never fully dissipate, atmospheric conditions that defy meteorological prediction. Feel the weight of primordial history now settling around you. The recognition that these beings existed before gods established their current domains, before mortals conceived of civilization, before the multiverse achieved its present form. They represent the raw materials of creation given consciousness, the fundamental forces made manifest. And in their continued existence, they remind you that beneath all the complexity of modern reality lie simple truths, elemental facts, forces that cannot be negotiated with or bargained away, or wished into non-existence. The phoenix burns and dies and is reborn, the cycle continuing without variation, without degradation, perfect and eternal. Elder elementals flow and shift and maintain their eternal expressions of elemental purity. Zeratons drift on ocean floors, creating islands through their very existence, supporting life through patient endurance. These beings need nothing from mortals, seek no worship, offer no bargains, simply continue existing according to natures established before time itself began its relentless march. Section 4. Beasts of Shadow and Light. Your journey through primordial forms continues, moving now into realms where opposites meet, where light and darkness intertwine, where creatures of purest good exist alongside beings of absolute corruption. These ancient beasts embody forces more abstract than elemental power, more complex than simple physical dominance. They represent concepts made flesh, philosophies given form, the eternal struggle between creation and destruction, played out through beings whose very existence shapes moral reality around them. The Kirin appears first in your contemplation, and you must prepare yourself to witness perfection. Picture a creature that resembles a muscular stag, the size of an elephant, measuring 13 feet in length, but covered not in fur alone, but in golden scales that shimmer with celestial radiance. Golden fur grows in places between the scales, creating patterns that seem to shift in the light, that draw the eye and hold attention through beauty alone. The creature stands large by official measure, yet its presence feels far greater, as if physical dimensions fail to capture the full scope of what the Kirin represents. The head carries a single horn spiraling upward from the forehead, reminiscent of a unicorn, but distinctly different in character. This horn glows with soft radiance that never dims, serves as focus for the Kirin's considerable magical power, channels divine energy with efficiency that mortal wizards can only dream of achieving. The eyes, positioned to provide expansive vision, glow purple with inner light, reflecting emotions and thoughts with perfect transparency, hiding nothing because beings of such goodness have nothing to hide. Feel the wings now, great feathered appendages that allow the Kirin to fly at speeds exceeding 120 feet in mere seconds, to hover motionless in air through sheer force of will. These wings beat with motions too graceful to seem mechanical, too purposeful to appear random. creating currents of air that carry hints of incense and distant music that leave trails of faint luminescence hanging in the sky. Let yourself sense the Kirin's presence on deeper levels now, beyond mere physical perception. The creature radiates goodness the way the sun radiates light, constantly and without effort, an aura that extends outward, affecting the emotional state of everyone within range. Standing near a Kirin, based on accounts from those rare individuals blessed with such encounters, you would feel hope even in despair, courage even in fear, peace even amid chaos. The creature's mere proximity elevates mortals toward their better natures, reminds them of ideals they have abandoned, rekindles flames of nobility they thought long extinguished. The Kirin speaks through telepathy, its thoughts entering your mind directly, bypassing the limitations of spoken language. When a Kirin addresses you, you understand not just the surface meaning of its communication, but the deeper truths beneath. Perceive implications and connections you would never grasp through normal conversation. The creature does not lecture or condescend, but shares wisdom with the patience of a teacher who has eternity to wait for comprehension to dawn. These celestial beings possess natural armor so effective that attacks, which would devastate other creatures, simply fail to penetrate their defenses, creating protection equivalent to the finest enchanted plate armor without requiring any actual armor at all. Combined with their impressive physical strength and supernatural resilience, Kirin represent formidable opponents to evil despite their peaceful natures. Based on the Kirin's celestial origins and their documented behaviors, we can reasonably infer that these beings maintain vigilance over specific regions or individuals, watching for threats that mortal defenders cannot perceive or counter. Their ability to cast spells innately, to detect evil and good, to read thoughts and discern true intentions, allows them to recognize corruption before it manifests in obvious ways. To understand how today's small transgression might blossom into tomorrow's catastrophe if left unchecked. Some cultures, particularly in eastern lands, speak of Kirin serving as advisors to great rulers, offering guidance on matters of state, justice, and cosmic balance. Whether these accounts describe specific historical individuals or represent archetypal stories told across many regions remains difficult to determine without direct verification. What we can conclude from consistent patterns in these stories is that Kirin involve themselves in mortal affairs when they perceive that their intervention serves the greater good, that evil threatens to overwhelm light, or that balance requires restoration. Feel yourself moving now from light toward shadow, from celestial grace toward darkness given form. The transition feels abrupt, jarring, a descent from heights of beauty into valleys of horror. Yet this descent proves necessary, for you cannot understand light without comprehending the darkness against which it shines, cannot appreciate grace without experiencing its opposite. The Nightwalker emerges from shadows so deep they seem solid, a being composed of darkness itself, negative energy given shape and terrible purpose. Picture a humanoid figure standing huge in stature, broader than any mortal warrior, yet somehow emaciated, as if starvation has refined it to its essential components without actually weakening its structure. The body appears to be carved from midnight-given substance. Black so absolute it seems to absorb surrounding light, creating a zone of dimness that moves with the creature and cannot be dispelled through any conventional illumination. The face, if you can call it that, suggests features without actually possessing them. Where eyes should be, you find only voids, darkness deeper than the surrounding darkness, points that seem to draw in light and hope with equal hunger. The Nightwalker gazes upon you and perceives your vitality, your essence, your soul laid bare and vulnerable. And in that gaze, you feel hunger so profound it transcends mere physical appetite, becomes cosmic need, universal yearning to consume and extinguish all warmth, all light, all life. Let yourself understand now what the Nightwalker represents, the philosophical truth it embodies. This creature does not simply kill, it ends. The Nightwalker possesses an annihilating aura that extends 30 feet in all directions, constantly radiating necrotic damage to any living creature that begins its turn within range. But more terrifying than this passive harm is the creature's life-eater ability. Any creature reduced to 0 hit points from damage dealt by the Nightwalker dies permanently, cannot be revived by any means short of a wish spell. The soul does not depart to its destined afterlife. It simply ceases, consumed by the Nightwalker's inexhaustible hunger for life force. Everything the Nightwalker touches withers, ages, dies not through violence, but through proximity to entropy made manifest. Plants blacken and crumble to ash. Stone cracks and erodes at accelerated rates. Metal corrodes, living flesh necroses. Cells dying faster than bodies can replace them. Life fleeing before the Nightwalkers advance, like refugees fleeing a natural disaster. The creature's footsteps leave permanent scars on the land, patches where nothing will grow for years or decades, where the soil itself has been drained of vitality, where the fundamental capacity to support life has been extracted and consumed. Forests that once thrived become blighted wastelands. Fields that produced abundant crops turn to sterile dust. Rivers that flowed clear run black and poisonous, their waters transformed into liquid death. You sense the Nightwalker's origins now, its creation through processes that violate natural law, that pervert the normal flow of death and rebirth. These beings arise spontaneously in places where the boundaries between the material plane and the negative energy plane have worn dangerously thin. The negative energy plane leaks through these weak points, pools in material reality, accumulates until it achieves critical mass and awareness. And a Nightwalker steps forth fully formed, hungering, already ancient despite having existed for mere moments. Feel the cold now, not temperature cold, but something deeper, more fundamental. The Nightwalker radiates chill that freezes souls rather than bodies, that numbs emotions, that drains hope and courage and will to resist. Standing in the presence of a Nightwalker, you would feel despair settling over you like heavy snow. Each moment of exposure adding another layer, another weight, until movement becomes impossible, until breathing seems too much effort, until simply ceasing to exist appears not as tragedy, but as blessed relief. The creature possesses the ability to summon other undead to serve it, calling forth shadows and wraiths to do its bidding. This power extends the Nightwalker's influence beyond its immediate presence, allows it to corrupt and destroy across wider areas than its physical form alone could threaten. An area haunted by a Nightwalker becomes a zone of death where the living cannot safely venture, where undead servants patrol constantly, where hope itself seems to wither and die. Let your awareness shift now toward the ocean's darkest depths, seeking another being of ancient evil, one whose intelligence surpasses the Nightwalker's rudimentary consciousness, whose plans span centuries, whose malevolence calculates and schemes with patience born from eons of plotting. The Kraken swims into focus, and you must steel yourself against the horror of its appearance. Picture a squid magnified beyond sanity, a cephalopod that can grow to tremendous size. The body pulses with bioluminescent patterns, colors that shift through sickly greens and poisonous purples, creating hypnotic displays that mesmerize prey, that confuse predators, that communicate complex thoughts to other kraken across vast oceanic distances. 8 arms, each one thick as ship's masts, covered in suckers the size of dinner plates, each sucker ringed with hooks that tear flesh, that grip with pressure measured in tons. But the 2 feeding tentacles deserve special attention. These weapons that extend far beyond the arms when fully deployed, that strike with speed invisible to mortal eyes, that can snatch sailors from ship decks, pluck swimmers from the surface, reach into underwater caverns to extract prey that thought itself safely hidden. The tentacles possess independent awareness in limited fashion, make tactical decisions without requiring direct input from the Kraken's central consciousness. Fighting a Kraken means facing not one opponent, but 10, each limb a separate threat, each capable of killing experienced warriors through brute force alone. The beak sits hidden among the tentacles, a structure of hardened keratin sharp enough to shear through steel plate, strong enough to crush boulders. The Kraken feeds by first tearing prey into manageable pieces, then processing those pieces through the beak's grinding action, reducing everything to paste before swallowing. The creature's digestive system can process any organic matter and many inorganic substances, breaks down metal and stone with equal efficiency. You sense the intelligence now, vast and cold, and utterly alien to human modes of thought. The kraken possesses knowledge accumulated over centuries or millennia, speaks languages, understands surface politics and economics with sophistication that would impress scholars based on documented encounters and the behavior patterns displayed. We can reasonably conclude that kraken intelligence operates at levels comparable to the most brilliant mortal minds, perhaps exceeding them in certain domains. But this intelligence serves only selfish ends, turns toward schemes that bring suffering, that undermine civilizations, that spread chaos and destruction through carefully orchestrated disasters. Kraken have been known to establish cults among coastal populations, presenting themselves as gods worthy of worship, demanding tribute and sacrifice in exchange for sparing communities from destruction. These cults serve the kraken's purposes in multiple ways, providing food, gathering information about surface affairs, and spreading the creature's influence far beyond its immediate reach. Some kraken employ entire networks of agents, coordinating activities across multiple cities, manipulating events with patience that allows plans to unfold across generations. Let yourself descend deeper now, past even the kraken's usual haunts, down to trenches where light has never penetrated, where pressure crushes everything that ventures there unprepared, where the most ancient evils maintain their holds on existence. The aboleth waits in these depths, and you must approach this being with appropriate dread, for it remembers what others have forgotten, knows secrets that predate current reality, maintains awareness spanning eons, while mortal generations flicker past too quickly to merit individual attention. Picture a fish-like creature measuring 10 to 20 feet in length, covered in slime that glistens even in absolute darkness, that secretes substances, both toxic and transformative, that coats everything the aboleth touches with residue that enslaves and mutates. 3 eyes sit in a horizontal row on the front of the skull, each eye capable of independent focus, creating a field of vision that encompasses nearly everything around the creature, that misses nothing, that processes information through consciousness older than most gods. 4 tentacles extend from near the creature's sides or tail region, each tentacle covered in mucus that transforms flesh through mere contact, that turns air breathers into water breathers, that enslaves those who survive the initial exposure to serve the aboleth's incomprehensible purposes. The tentacles move with sinuous grace through water, strike with surprising speed, but their true weapon is not physical force, but the substances they secrete, the biological and magical compounds that rewrite victims' fundamental natures. Feel the weight of memory now, the terrible burden that defines aboleth existence. These creatures possess perfect recall, remember everything they have ever experienced with crystal clarity. And more than this, they inherit the memories of their ancestors through biological mechanisms mortals cannot replicate. An aboleth born today carries within its mind the complete memories of every aboleth in its lineage back to the species' origin. A chain of consciousness spanning eons, making each individual aboleth simultaneously a newborn and an ancient, a fresh being carrying the experiences of countless lifetimes. You perceive through aboleth memory now, witness history as they experienced it. The world before gods walked it, when primordial forces warred for dominance, and mortals had not yet evolved beyond simple animals. The aboleths ruled this ancient world according to their own accounts, commanded vast empires, shaped lesser beings to serve their purposes, believed themselves eternal and unconquerable. Then came the gods, younger powers, who challenged aboleth dominance, and the wars that followed reshaped reality itself according to aboleth recollection. The aboleths claim they lost those wars, saw their empires crumble, their slave races freed or destroyed, their cities sunk beneath oceans or buried under mountains. They retreated to the deepest places, to refuges where divine power reached only weakly. And there they have waded through all the ages since, remembering their former glory, plotting return to dominance, maintaining patience that makes Kraken's scheming seem impulsive by comparison. Let yourself understand now the existential threat that aboleths represent, not through physical might alone, but through the simple fact of their existence and their perfect memory. They remember the truth about gods according to their perspective, claim knowledge that these supposedly eternal beings are relatively recent arrivals to the cosmic stage, possess what they present as evidence that divine power is neither absolute nor permanent. Whether their memories accurately reflect historical truth or represent biased interpretation remains unknowable to mortal scholars. But the aboleths themselves believe utterly in their version of history. The slime-coating aboleth bodies deserves your particular attention now. This substance that serves simultaneously as weapon, tool, and communication medium. Contact with aboleth mucus transforms air-breathing creatures, rewrites their respiratory systems to extract oxygen from water. But this transformation comes with a terrible price. Victims become dependent on moisture, must immerse themselves in water regularly, or begin to suffocate despite having functional lungs. This forces them to remain near the aboleth, to seek its aquatic domain, to gradually descend into deeper waters, where the creature's control becomes absolute. The mucus also carries mind-affecting properties through the aboleth's enslave ability, creates a telepathic link between aboleth and victim, allows the creature to dominate the victim's will, to reshape thoughts and loyalties over time. This process leaves no obvious external marks initially, creates no dramatic signs of domination, makes detection nearly impossible until the transformation has progressed beyond easy reversal. You sense the balance now between all these beings of light and shadow, how Kirin and Nightwalker represent opposite poles on a moral spectrum. How Kraken and Aboleth embody different expressions of ancient evil through intelligence and memory. The Kirin shows you what goodness looks like in its purest form. Celestial nobility made manifest. Proof that benevolence exists as a real force in the cosmos. The Nightwalker shows you entropy's final expression, the heat death of the universe given shape and hunger, the ultimate ending that awaits all things. The Kraken demonstrates intelligence turned towards selfish and destructive ends, shows how brilliance and patience can serve malevolence as effectively as they might serve virtue. The Aboleth reminds you that history extends farther than comfortable myths suggest, that current arrangements may be temporary, that powers you thought eternal might be merely old, and older powers wait in darkness, remembering, planning, preparing for opportunities measured in geological time rather than mortal lifespans. Section 5. The Slumber of Ages. Your consciousness drifts now toward the final gathering of ancient beings, creatures whose names persist in legend, whose existences mark the boundaries between civilization and true wilderness. These are beings so ancient that even their most recent stirrings occurred generations ago, that rest in places beyond mortal reach, that dream in cycles measured by seasons and years rather than by days. They shape the world in ways no surface dweller recognizes or comprehends. The purple worm emerges first into your awareness, and you must adjust your understanding of what constitutes a living creature. Picture a serpent body 80 feet long and 5 feet in diameter, though the largest specimens can reach up to 150 feet. The creature measures gargantuan in size, covered not in scales, but in segments of chitinous armor, each segment thick as castle walls, colored in shades of deep purple that shift toward violet in certain light. This coloration serves no camouflage purpose, for the purple worm dwells where light never reaches, where darkness reigns absolute and eternal. The head consists almost entirely of a circular mouth, 10 feet across, ringed with crystalline teeth that grind through solid rock with the ease you might tear through parchment. These teeth do not serve primarily for catching prey, but for excavation, for boring through earth and stone, for creating the vast tunnel networks that honeycomb the deep places of the world. The purple worm literally eats its way through the planet's crust, processes rock through a digestive system designed to extract minerals and trace nutrients, leaves behind smoothed tunnels 10 feet in diameter that will become highways for future underdark travelers, caves for future civilizations, passages that fundamentally alter underground geography. Feel the vibrations now as a purple worm moves through earth far beneath your feet. The creature possesses tremor sense, extending 60 feet in all directions, can detect the slightest disturbance in surrounding earth, feels prey moving through tunnels hundreds of feet distant. These vibrations travel for miles through solid stone, announce the worm's presence to everything dwelling underground. create fear in creatures who understand what approaches. The purple worm possesses no eyes, needs no vision in environments where light does not exist. Instead, it perceives through vibration sensors distributed across its entire body, through blind sight that extends 30 feet, detecting prey through means that transcend conventional senses. When it decides to hunt rather than excavate, the worm turns toward detected movement with terrifying accuracy, burrows through intervening stone, emerges into the target's location with explosive force that leaves no time for escape or defense. The stinger deserves your particular attention. This weapon mounted at the tail's tip, capable of piercing dragon scales, hollow to allow injection of venom, so potent it can kill even formidable warriors within moments. The purple worm uses this weapon when facing creatures too large to swallow immediately, too dangerous to engage directly with its mouth. The stinger strikes with precision that belies the worm's apparent clumsiness, drives home with force measured in tons, injects toxins that shut down nervous systems before victims can react. Let yourself descend through Earth now. Follow tunnel networks created by purple worms over centuries of excavation. These passages spiral downward through stone layers, connect cave systems that would otherwise remain isolated, create ecological corridors that allow species to migrate between different underground regions. The Underdark, as mortals know, it exists largely because purple worms created the infrastructure, carved the highways, opened the spaces that other creatures later colonized and claimed as territory. You encounter evidence of the worm's passage everywhere in deep places. Smoothed tunnel walls that show no tool marks, no evidence of intelligent excavation, just the patient grinding of those crystalline teeth against resistant stone. Chambers where purple worms have coiled to rest, their body heat warming the rock, creating pockets of unusual temperature that persist long after the worm has moved on. The creatures cannot digest gems and precious metals, instead excreting these materials as waste, creating deposits that draw treasure hunters into the depths. Despite the obvious dangers, the deep gnomes, those subterranean cousins of surface gnomes, maintain careful records of purple worm migration patterns. Track the creatures with the same dedication that surface farmers track weather. When a purple worm approaches gnome settlements, the entire community evacuates to prepared shelters, seals entrances, waits in perfect silence while the behemoth passes through or around their territory. Sometimes the worm simply continues on its way, leaving structures intact through sheer chance. Other times, it carves directly through inhabited areas, demolishing in minutes what took decades to build, uncaring and unaware of the lives it disrupts. Yet the gnomes do not hate purple worms, do not seek to exterminate them as surface dwellers might approach dangerous predators. Based on what we understand of Underdark ecology, these creatures serve a purpose, fulfill a role that cannot be replaced. Purple worms process materials that would otherwise accumulate dangerously. Create circulation in the Earth's crust. Maintain the tunnel networks that make underground travel and commerce possible. Without purple worms, the Underdark would transform over geological timescales, would become less habitable, less navigable, less capable of supporting the civilizations that currently thrive there. Feel yourself rising now toward open sky, ascending from depths to heights, seeking creatures of air and altitude rather than earth and darkness. The rock appears on the horizon, and you must strain your perception to accept its scale. Picture an eagle magnified beyond reason, a bird of prey measuring 30 to 60 feet from head to tail base, with wingspan ranging from 80 to 120 feet. Rare specimens, the largest recorded, boast even greater dimensions, their wings stretching across vast distances when fully spread. The creature weighs approximately 8,000 pounds, mass that seems impossible for any flying creature to support. Yet the rock flies with apparent ease at altitudes where air grows thin, where cold becomes absolute, where few creatures can survive without magical assistance. It prefers these heights, finds comfort in solitude and silence broken only by wind, hunts from elevations that render surface details invisible to lesser eyes. Watch the rock hunt now. Observe the patience it brings to this activity. The bird circles at maximum altitude for hours without apparent effort, wings locked in gliding position, riding thermal currents that require no energy expenditure to maintain. Below, large prey moves across terrain, and the rock selects a target, begins its descent. The dive takes minutes, the rock folding wings partially to increase speed while maintaining control, adjusting constantly to account for wind shear and changing air density. The prey below has no warning, no sense of the shadow growing larger overhead, no understanding that death approaches from above at tremendous velocity. The rock's talons strike with force equivalent to falling boulders, pierce hide, grip with pressure that crushes bone, and the bird's wings snap open, catching air, using the prey's momentum to help lift both predator and victim back toward the sky. The prey's weight, potentially several tons for the largest specimens, seems insignificant to the rock's strength. The bird climbs steadily, carries its catch to a mountain nest built from tree trunks and boulders, a structure that can span 40 to 50 feet across and stand 10 to 20 feet deep, home to this rock, and potentially its mate for years or decades. The prey provides food for extended periods, and whatever the rocks do not consume falls from the nest to fertilize the mountain slopes below, creating zones of unusual plant growth that mark rock territories. Let yourself contemplate now the relationship between rocks and the civilizations that exist within their hunting territories. Some cultures worship these birds as sky spirits, as divine messengers, as manifestations of mountain gods. They leave offerings at specific locations, hoping to appease the rocks, to convince them to hunt elsewhere, to protect herds from aerial predation. Other societies adopt more aggressive approaches, employ powerful adventurers or wizards to drive rocks away from settled regions, accepting the inevitable casualties that come from confronting creatures of such overwhelming physical capability. You sense now the loneliness inherent in rock existence, the isolation that comes from being apex predator in an environment where equals rarely appear. Rocks mate for life when they find partners, maintain pair bonds that can last for their entire lifespans. But beyond their mates, they interact with no other creatures in any sustained way. They hunt alone or in pairs, nest in remote locations, fly alone through empty skies where nothing challenges them, where nothing competes with them, where they reign supreme and solitary over domains measured in hundreds of square miles. Feel yourself drawn now toward the eternal patterns these ancient beings maintain. How they continue cycles established long before current civilizations rose from barbarism. Purple worms excavate for lifetimes, pursuing goals that unfold across centuries, creating infrastructure that will serve purposes they cannot conceive. The worms possess minimal intelligence, operating primarily on instinct, yet their actions reshape underground geography more profoundly than any intelligent species' deliberate engineering. Rocks hunt and nest according to patterns established through countless generations. Will continue those patterns long after current nations have crumbled to archaeological curiosities. These creatures, while more intelligent than purple worms, still operate primarily through instinct refined over ages of evolution, through behaviors that have proven successful across time spans that dwarf recorded history. Let your awareness expand to encompass other ancient beings, creatures whose names appear rarely in common bestiaries, whose existences are known only to specialized scholars. The world holds secrets in its deepest places, beings that have not surfaced in living memory, that maintain vigilance over territories so remote that explorers never reach them. Based on fragmentary accounts from Underdark explorers and deep-sea voyagers, we might reasonably infer that creatures of tremendous size and age dwell in places mortals consider inaccessible, that ancient patterns continue in darkness and isolation, that the world holds mysteries that current knowledge has not penetrated. These forgotten beings teach patience through their mere existence, demonstrate that urgency is optional rather than necessary, show that power combined with patience creates something approaching permanence. They do not rush because nothing threatens them sufficiently to require haste. They do not plan in complex ways because their instincts, refined through ages of survival, provide better guidance than conscious thought could offer. They simply are, and in being, they shape the world more profoundly than any kingdom's deliberate policies ever could. You sense the breathing now of all these ancient creatures, slow exhalations that create currents in earth and air, inhalations that draw in the world's essence, respiratory cycles measured in heartbeats for smaller beings, in hours for the truly vast. Purple worms process stone through digestive systems that operate continuously, transforming the planet's crust one bite at a time. Rocks circle at altitudes where their breathing becomes visible as frost, where each exhalation creates small clouds, where the simple act of respiration marks them as living furnaces generating heat that keeps flight muscles operational in freezing temperatures. Let yourself rest now in contemplation of what these beings represent, how they embody a different relationship with time than creatures of moderate lifespan experience. They pursue goals that unfold across time, spans mortals cannot personally witness, create legacies that persist beyond any individual's capacity to appreciate, demonstrate that the most profound impacts often come not from dramatic action, but from patient repetition of simple patterns. Feel yourself settling now into the rhythm of ages. Let the weight of deep time press gently against your awareness. These ancient beasts continue their eternal patterns, require nothing from you, care nothing for your concerns, yet their existence provides strange comfort in a world of constant change, of empires rising and falling, of gods changing portfolios and philosophies, shifting with cultural trends. These beings remain constant. The purple worm will always excavate. The rock will always hunt from impossible heights. They represent continuity in a cosmos of flux. Your breathing has slowed now, matched itself to these ancient rhythms without conscious effort, fallen into synchronization with forces older than civilization. Each inhalation draws in air that has circulated through purple worm tunnels, that has been stirred by rock wings, that carries traces of every ancient beast across every age. Each exhalation releases your concerns, your worries, lets these anxieties dissipate into atmosphere where they belong, where they matter no more than individual raindrops matter to oceans. Feel yourself descending now through layers of consciousness, through levels of awareness that humans rarely access, down into dream space where logic loses its grip and symbolism reigns supreme. The ancient beasts wait here too, exist in these depths as archetypes rather than physical beings, represent fundamental truths that transcend biology or ecology, or any scientific framework mortals might construct. The purple worm becomes process itself, the patient grinding away of obstacles, the slow transformation of resistance into passage, the reminder that persistent effort eventually breaks through any barrier. The rock signifies perspective, the ability to see patterns invisible from ground level, to understand that apparent chaos resolves into order when viewed from sufficient distance and height. Let these archetypes settle into your deeper mind now. Let them take root where conscious thought cannot reach to prune or redirect. They will work upon you in ways you cannot predict or control, shape your dreams, influence your waking thoughts, gradually alter how you perceive reality, until the changes become so fundamental you forget you ever viewed the world differently. You rest now in the company of ancient beasts, surrounded by their patient presence, protected by their indifference. They do not love you, do not hate you, do not acknowledge your individual existence in any meaningful way, but their patterns create spaces within which mortal life becomes possible. Their cycles establish rhythms that smaller beings can synchronize with. Their sheer permanence provides foundation upon which temporary structures can be built. Sleep now with the purple worm's grinding progress. Dream with the rock's soaring visions. Rest in understanding that you are part of something larger, part of cycles that preceded you and will continue after, part of the great working that encompasses all existence. The ancient beasts continue their eternal patterns, and you continue yours, and both are necessary. Both serve purposes, and understanding this allows you to release the need to matter more than you do, to impact more than you can, to last longer than your allotted span. You are brief and beautiful and temporary, and the ancient beasts witness your existence with the same mild acknowledgement they afford all ephemeral phenomena, appreciative of beauty without attachment, recognizing impermanence without grief. Rest now in this knowledge. Sleep in this comfort. Let yourself drift into dreams where ancient beasts roam freely, where their presence fills every landscape, where their voices sing you deeper into rest than you have known in waking life. Thank you for traveling with me through these ancient forms, for bearing witness to beings whose existence spans eons, whose power dwarfs mortal comprehension, whose patience teaches lessons that words alone could never convey. If this journey brought you peace, if these ancient beasts helped carry you toward rest and renewal, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Your support allows these explorations to continue, helps share knowledge of primordial beings with others who seek comfort in contemplating powers larger than themselves, who find peace in recognizing their proper place within the vast machinery of existence. Sleep well, dream deep, and may the ancient beasts watch over your rest with their patient, eternal gaze.